What's going on, guys? Zuko back with another Shadowlands video. How are you all doing? I hope you're doing well. The coffee is good this morning. Grab your coffee, kick back and relax. We're gonna do the third tree on for the rogue. We're gonna do sub rogue today. So we've done outlaw and then assassination. Now we're moving on to sub. Of course, we want to get all these Dragonflight talent trees under our belt and get a really good understanding of kind of what's going on here. Hopefully try to provide some feedback for Blizzard for certain parts of the tree that just don't really make sense or are just absolute trash, etc. So good for us to go through this stuff. So let's jump into Sub Rogue. One thing I just want to say quickly about Outlaw and Assassination is that they obviously both had raid utility, and Sub Rogue also has raid utility coming in as well, which is really good. It does seem like Blizzard is making an effort to give everybody in the game some sort of raid utility, which is a good thing. I think it's a really good thing. So, like, Druids are getting Mark of the Wild back, which is going to be bonkers, and then all the rogue specs have different raid utility that they can bring. I think Hunters would be the only real class left that doesn't have straight, like, raid utility, so I'm hoping that they get some too. But this is a good thing for the game, and Sub Rogue also has raid utility, which we're going to get to in a minute. It's over here. So let's talk first about the class tree. What does the class tree offer for Sub Rogue? And I'm going to kind of go down, you know, if you've been watching these videos, then you know what these trees are all about by now. But for those of you who haven't, I think this is a fairly decent build that I've come up with for Sub Rogue. There's a lot of cool, like really interesting cooldowns that you might want to think about. Things like Thistle Tea and Seal Fate. Cold Blood are really good. I don't think you're going to care about going into Echoing Reprimand in the middle, but the class tree, essentially, one of the absolute biggest thing that it lets us do as a sub rogue is get a second charge on Shadow Dance. So you can see on our tree, we get Shadow Dance for sub rogue, but you also get one on the main tree. So now you get 2 charges of Shadow Dance, which is exactly what you would have on the live game, generally speaking, depending on like the talents that you choose to pick. I mean, I don't know people who ever picked Alacrity or Dark Shadow because they were just not as good as getting an additional charge of Shadow Dance. And what else did Enveloping Shadows do? I don't know why it doesn't. Icy Veins is screwed up for me, but reduces the remaining cooldown by an additional 0.5 seconds. So you're going to see we have a tiny bit of a nerfed version of that Enveloping Shadows there, but we do get 2 charges of Shadow Dance, which is enormous. It's really, really, really good. It's just like kind of impossible to play sub without 2 charges of Shadow Dance. Like it just doesn't feel good at all. So good that that's there. We do have Deeper Stratagem here, and you can get a second Deeper Stratagem over here, which we'll talk about later. But that is pretty good for Sub Rogue. Sub Rogue generates a lot of combo points because you get combo point generation from your auto attacks, right? Which is up here, Shadow Techniques. There's just a lot of sort of extra combo points being generated, not randomly, but seemingly kind of randomly, unlike Outlaw Rogue, which has a very deterministic way of generating combo points. So, that is, Sub Rogues kind of always had this, like, perpetual combo point generation system going on, and that means that double Deeper Stratagem might be the play. 7 combo points might actually be the play, so we'll get to that in a minute as well. Find Weakness is really good, of course, because you're getting 40% of the damage that you're dealing bypasses armor. So shadow damage, which is sort of Sub Rogue specialty, automatically bypasses armor. You can see Gloom Blade here. Punctures your target with Shadow-infused blade, dealing shadow damage, which bypasses armor. There's a bunch of other ways to make your damage do shadow damage for Sub Rogue, which is going to be really, really cool. But Find Weakness essentially says basically it's saying your auto attacks have a 40% chance to penetrate armor, which is really good. Obviously, it applies to all your attacks, but most notably, your auto attacks are buffed by Find Weakness, and Sub Rogue wields double daggers, which is the fastest auto attacking in the game, plus Slice and Dice is 50% attack speed. You get the idea, right? You're going to be, Find Weakness is very valuable for the daggers because you're attacking so quickly. Cold Blood is going to be really strong, I think, when combined with something like Improved Shuriken Storm over here, and just Shuriken Storm in general, because this guarantees a crit from Cold Blood. Improved Shuriken Storm says that critical strikes from Shuriken Storm apply Find Weakness, right? So you could have Cold Blood into Shuriken Storm, and then Symbols of Death into Shuriken Storm, because Symbols guarantees that your next ability will crit as well, right? So actually, it doesn't say that there. The baseline version does. Huh. And then it says here, actually, I'm not entirely sure about that now. We'll have to see if that's true, because the main ability still does. Like, it does guarantee that your next spell will crit. We'll have to look at that a little bit more. Where's this? Symbols, yeah. Invoke and generating for your next combo point generator will critically strike. So that's what it says on the live version, is that your next combo point generating ability will critically strike. And here it doesn't say that. So maybe it's just a nerfed version. That would be kind of sad. But anyway, obviously this here says increases your critical strike chance by 10%, but that doesn't guarantee that your next spender will crit. So that's maybe a little bit sad. We'll get down to the other stuff later, because I don't think I see it anywhere else. But anyway, back to the class tree really quickly. I do think that Cold Blood plus Shuriken Storm is going to be really solid. Mark for Death is here. Again, energy regeneration will not be an issue at all for Sub-Rogue. You can get Deeper Stratagem plus Mark for Death, or Mark for Death plus Vigor if you want it. You can go either way, and then just have one Deeper Stratagem over here, or don't take Deeper at all. Whatever you think you want to do. But the Sub-Rogue tree also gets all the benefits of Stealth, which are really important, right? So 20% movement speed, 20% damage down here. That's really important when you're combining it with, obviously, Shadow Dance, because you get 2 Shadow Dances, and it gives you all the benefits of Stealth. So pretty, like, standard sort of tree that you might build for Sub-Rogue. Poisons are going to be important. I would always take this Virulent Poison node over here. I'll get to that. I'll get to why in a minute. So I think 20% more damage on your poisons is actually really important. Let's get to the sub-tree itself. Again, left side, middle area, right side. That's how we're going to divide it up. So the left side of the tree is essentially like passive buffs and then Symbols of Death. So you got Backstab. You have Shadow Focus here, which is really good. Let me make sure. Let me pull up the talents over here. I'll put it over here so I can see. So Shadow Focus and Subterfuge and Night Stalker, right? They share a row right now. So you can get Shadow Focus here, Subterfuge here, Night Stalker here. You're probably going to get Night Stalker. You don't have to get Subterfuge. It's actually not bad. It could be good because you can get extra Shadow Strikes in, so you might want to take Subterfuge. I don't think it's mandatory, though. But you can get Shadow Focus here, which was the go-to button to take in, like, right now. But you could also get access to the other ones, which is really, really good. Weapon Master is here, and Premeditation, and Gloomblade. Boom, boom, boom. All 3 of them. In fact, Weapon Master and Premeditation are basically, you're going to take those. So you're getting both the benefit of both of these, which is really good. 15% chance to strike twice, and then after entering stealth, you get the Slice and Dice buff. I think this is really huge. It means you don't ever have to press Slice and Dice, to a degree. You might have to press it eventually, but it just means that, like, in Mythic Plus in particular, at the beginning of every pack, you have Slice and Dice open. So that's really, really good for Sub-Rogue. Then, of course, Shadow Techniques. This is just a passive that we have right now. Auto attacks generating a combo point. You kind of need that, in my opinion. It's very, very good for generating combo points. Then you have Symbols of Death, which, as we've just realized, I think is nerfed, which might... that's pretty bad, in my opinion. Like, it's still it's a very, very good button, but not getting a guaranteed crit on your next thing is kind of big. Gloomblade is here. I think Gloomblade will see more play now, potentially, because you're going to be getting Premeditation and Weapon Master for free. You could just get... It's, like, right there. It's so easy to get. So Gloomblade might see more play. As I've said, with all the abilities that are kind of, like, new... Or, sorry, all the abilities that are not played, right? So Outlaw Rogue, for example... You look at, like, Dreadblades. You might take Dreadblades now, even though you never would have taken it before, because you get Alacrity for free. It's a similar experience here for Sub-Rogue. You're going to get these other 2 basically for free, I would say, or unless you're just insane. You're not going to go down this tree. And then you can also take Gloomblade if you want. Here's Symbols of Death, and then, again, here's a buff to Symbols of Death. Increases your critical strike chance by 10%. That is new. Oh, sorry. That's Planned Execution, which is a Conduit. Right? I believe that's a Conduit right now. So, planned execution, yeah, it is. It's a conduit. Then there's a new passive here called Inevitability. I looked around the internet and I looked on all the different trees and stuff. I don't think this exists right now. If it exists, somebody please tell me where it exists. But Backstab and Shadow Strike extending the duration of Symbols of Death is interesting. I actually just wish that this, like, increased the damage that you got by 5% on Symbols of Death and guaranteed that your next ability would crit. Because extending the duration of Symbols of Death with your Shadow Strike and Backstab is kind of lame. Like, it's a 10-second duration, and you're only probably going to likely extend it by up to, like, 5 seconds. Like, you might get a 15-second buff. So you're getting 10% more damage for 5 more seconds, realistically speaking. That doesn't sound very good to me. I would rather just bake in 5% more damage into this and then make my next, whenever I press symbols, my next ability should crit. I really do think they should bring that back because it just creates really good combos with things like Shuriken Storm applying Find Weakness to all your enemies and then making your Black Powder just do way more damage. So I really do wish they would change this. I think that's kind of a bad talent. Here's the raid utility for Sub-Rogue. Shroud of Concealment increases the movement speed of all party and raid members within its radius by 50%. Very, very cool. 50%. So it's almost like a roar from Druid, but you can move with it. And also you can use, like, you can also attack with your other stealth abilities as a Sub-Rogue if you have Shadow Dance up. So, like, mid-fight, you need to move the whole group somewhere. You pop Shadow Dance, you pop Shroud of Concealment, then you start running with your group, but you can also keep pressing Shadow Step, or it's not Shadow Step, sorry. I mean, you can press Shadow Step. You can press Shadow Strike. You can do Shuriken Storm. You can do your other abilities because you have access to all your abilities that require stealth for 9 seconds, right? So I do think that this is really, really good. It might not be quite on par with the Outlaw Rogue one or certainly the Assassination Rogue one, getting 3% damage reduction on the boss. But this is exactly the kind of flavor that you want for Rogue, and it's a very, very strong cooldown. I think it's going to be really good on a raid. So that's really cool. Again, we're continuing down this tree. This is the Symbols of Death tree, essentially. So we're going to keep going down here. You've got Sepsis back here, which is good because it does... you can actually augment this to do shadow damage. So this does nature damage right now. And I'm going to do a little spoiler right now. But Dark Brew over here, I think, is like the MVP for the talents on this tree. This is insane. Increases the damage of your weapon poisons by 30%. Rogue abilities that deal nature damage now deal shadow damage instead. Whoa, that's insane. 30% more damage on your poisons. 20% more damage to your poisons here. That's 50% more poison damage. But you can convert the poison into shadow damage. So now your deadly poison, every time it hits, it does 50% more damage, and it does shadow damage instead, which, again, ignores armor. So that's really, really good, and you can also buff Sepsis like this because it does nature damage, and now it's going to do shadow damage. So you can make Sepsis do way more damage because it's going to just ignore the target's armor. And then, of course, you get the use of one stealth ability. Here's what I don't know. I need you sub-rogues to explain this to me. You, like, sub-rogue mains. If I press Sepsis and Vanish is on cooldown, do I get to use Vanish? Because it says you gain one use of any stealth ability. Does that mean that, like, even if my stealth ability is on cooldown, I can use it? Because if that's true, if I can use Vanish, even if it's on cooldown, then that's really insane, given this Invigorating Shadowdust down here. I'm going to get to this in a second. But I need you guys to let me know about this. With Sepsis, do you get to just use any stealth ability, even if it's on cooldown? I would love to know that. Please let me know in the comments down below. I can't test it right now because it's Tuesday morning and the servers just went down, so like 40 minutes ago. Please let me know about that, because if you can, I'm going to explain why that's crazy in a minute. Perforated veins, this is another... no, this is not a conduit, is it? Let me look really quick. Oh, it is. It is. It is. It is. Perforated Veins is a conduit. So Shadow Strike increases the damage of your next backstab by 35%. This is interesting because of this right here. Lingering Shadow. After Shadow Dance ends, backstab deals an additional 100% damage as Shadow, fading by 2%. You can combine that with this. So you get into Shadow Dance, Shadow Strike, Eviscerate, Shadow Strike, Eviscerate, Shadow Strike, Eviscerate. Now you have 3 charges of this Perforated Veins stacked. And then your next backstab will do 100% more damage plus 35%, or is just if this stacks 3 times, then it would be 105%. So your next backstab would do like 200% damage or something. Like, there's an interesting combo there. That's all I'm saying. It's going to make it so backstab doesn't feel quite so bad when you're out of Shadow Dance. So that's kind of interesting. Oh, I just wrecked my camera. Whoa. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's keep going. Invigorating Shadowdust. I need to talk about this for a minute because this is not something that I think sub-rogues really used. It was something talked about in the Outlaw Rogue because Outlaw Rogue can reduce the cooldown of Vanish very rapidly. However, there's an additional charge of Vanish here, which initially looks bad on the surface, but bear with me here. Let's pretend like you get Sepsis, and then you get Echoing Reprimand over here, and you get like Thistletea, or you get Echoing Reprimand and Cold Blood, and Mark for Death, and you obviously have Shadow Dance. Shadow Dance is like a 1-minute cooldown. This is a 1-minute cooldown. This is a 45-second cooldown. Thistletea is a 1-minute cooldown. Invigorating Shadowdust says Vanish reduces the cooldown of your other rogue abilities by 20 seconds. That's a lot. And if you can get a second charge of Vanish, that means you can use this like all the time, basically. So you're going to pop your cooldowns like Cold Blood into Sepsis, into maybe a Mark for Death, into Sepsis, Thistletea, into whatever you want to do. Imagine just Thistletea in general. Thistletea has 3 charges. You spend 1 charge, that first charge starts coming back. You pop Vanish, you get 20 seconds off your Thistletea. Wow, suddenly you can basically have permanent Thistletea uptime. Just that combination alone. Vanish, like you Thistletea into Vanish, do a couple other things. Thistletea again, do a couple more things. Vanish again, then you'll have basically your full charge of your first charge that you had on Thistletea is back, and now your second charge is also coming back. Like, you see what I'm saying there? You could do some really interesting combos with that. Obviously, with Shadow Dance, having 2 charges of Shadow Dance, this is completely bananas because you're already getting 1 second towards the cooldown of Shadow Dance per combo point spent with Deepening Shadows, but you can also get a huge 20-second chunk off of Shadow Dance to ensure that you're basically in Shadow Dance all the time. Like, there's something here, especially with Sepsis too, converting Sepsis to shadow damage, making it do just a ton of damage. Of course, Symbols of Death. Symbols of Death is like a 30-second cooldown. So you Symbols of Death into Vanish, then it's basically almost back already. You do a bunch of damage, press Symbols of Death again, Vanish again, it's basically back off cooldown again. There's something interesting there. The fact that you don't have to have this as your primary legendary, like we do in Shadowlands, makes this tremendously valuable, in my opinion. I think that this is really, really good. And there's going to be a Vanish build for Sub-Rogue that has to do with, like, grabbing extra major cooldowns, like Cold Blood, Mark for Death, maybe Thistletea, and then you just pop all your cooldowns. You're going to play almost like an Outlaw Rogue. You pop your cooldowns, then you pop Vanish. And then you get back to your cooldowns again, play for another 10, 15 seconds, then pop your coolies again, then Vanish again, and keep going back and forth like that. And if Sepsis does, in fact, give you a 3rd charge of Vanish for free, then this is completely crazy. Because you can, like, Vanish, or pop all your cooldowns, Vanish. Pop all your cooldowns, Vanish. Pop all your cooldowns, Sepsis. Pop, like, it's just like, and then Vanish after you use your Sepsis. So there's something here. There's a build here that's interesting, especially with this final talent, which is called the Rotten, which is, of course, a legendary effect. After activating Symbols of Death, your next Shadow Strike or Backstab does 50% increased damage, generates 4 additional combo points, and is guaranteed to crit. So Symbols of Death, right? 30-second cooldown. Symbols of Death, Vanish. 10 seconds left. La, 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 la. It's basically back. Do your big Shadow Strike. Symbols of Death again. Vanish again. Do your big Shadow Strike combo. Sepsis, Vanish, Symbols of Death again. Do you see what I'm saying there? So really, really interesting. I want to make sure I spend some time talking about Invigorating Shadowdust because I think it's going to become a really interesting build now. There's like some really crazy single target Symbols of Death / Thistle Tea, Cold Blood, Shadow Dance, Sepsis build with Invigorating Shadowdust. I really do believe that there's something there. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Let's back up a little bit. Let's go down the middle section of the tree here. Okay, so this middle section of the tree mostly has to do with your major cooldowns and some extra passive. So an extra charge of Shadow Step, really, really good. Shadow Dance is here, obviously. Your major cooldown, Shadow Blades, is here. This is obviously nerfed here. Makes your do 30% additional damage as Shadow instead of 50% additional damage as Shadow. However, there are other buffs. Again, all these things might look like nerfs, but they never really truly are. This here, Veil Touched, your abilities deal 10% increased magic damage. That includes shadow damage. So if you take this, your Shadow Blades is already basically doing 40% more damage for Shadow. And there are other buffs as well. Remember that you're able to get more than one talent on each row. Just remember how important that is. You can get Weapon Master and Premeditation and Gloomblade. You can get Shadow Focus and Night Stalker. You can get Deeper and Vigor or Marked. You can get Dark Shadow and Alacrity and Enveloping Shadows it's in its different form now, but you can basically get all three of these. You can get Master of Shadows and Shuriken or Tech or Shadow. So the power level goes way up because you can grab more than one of each of these talents. Does that make sense? So yes, it looks like we're getting nerfed to a degree because Shadow Blades is only doing 30% more damage instead of 50% more damage on live, but you're getting all these extra talent points that are also buffing your damage. Does that make sense? So down here, we have Deepening Shadows. Again, 1 second off the cooldown. Then you have Master of Shadows here. Pretty good. This was typically only a single target talent, but you can just get it all the time now. That's a lot of energy regen. You're not even going to have to get, like, Vigor. It means that you could change your energy regen pattern maybe over here and go for something, just go for more damage instead. Or you could drop Master of Shadows and keep Vigor. Whatever you want to do. You have a choice now. The first dance, this is a legendary that was kind of not good. I still don't think you're going to take this, but it's an interesting idea. Especially with Invigorating Shadowdust, because you can go, obviously, Shadow Dance, big combo points, use a Spender, do your other Shadow Dance stuff, then Vanish and get most of the cooldown back on your Shadow Dance. So there's something there as well. Stiletto Staccato, this was a Conduit, of course. Reducing the cooldown of Shadow Blades, which is very good because it is a 3-minute cooldown. So this was actually quite good. I think typically this gave you like a solid minute of cooldown reduction. This is tied to Shadow Technique, so it is random, but 2 seconds. Again, Daggers attack very quickly. Slice and Dice being active means you're attacking very, very quickly, so this is going to proc quite a bit. Fade to Nothing. This was a Conduit as well. This is buffed, though. It used to just give you movement speed in Shadowlands. Now it is also going to reduce your damage taken by 10% while you use Stealth, Vanish, or Shadow Dance. So, like, this is basically 10% DR, like, all the time. This is very, very good. 10% damage reduction almost all the time. You could combine this with, like, Feint, and you take 40% less damage from area of effect attacks, or get Feint plus Elusiveness here, and then you take 30% less damage from non-area of effect attacks and 10% less damage all the time. Like, very defensive, very strong defensively. Dark Shadow, this is nerfed. Again, Shadow Dance increases your damage by additional 50%. On live, this is 30%. So it's actually half. This is half of what the live version is. But again, as I have to keep saying this over and over again, that you get to pick and choose other talents that are also giving you extra damage, like Night Stalker and la la la. So it's not that big of a loss. They have to cut the numbers a little bit because they're giving you so much more in general. Lingering Shadow is interesting. I don't believe this exists anywhere either. Like I said earlier, after Shadow Dance ends, Backstab. This basically just makes it so that you're out when you're out of Shadow Dance, you're still doing lots of damage with Backstab. It doubles the damage of Backstab for like a certain amount of time there. Obviously, it fades per second, but like that's pretty insane. So this might be really good in like in a raid in particular when it's a very long drawn out fight and you've used all your Shadow Dance charges and you're kind of like just sitting there backstabbing for a little while. This would be very helpful, I think. Then there's Shadow Mist. This is kind of strange. It's a brand new ability. Gaining Stealth, Vanish, or Shadow Dance expels Shadowy Mist. Walking through the Shadows Mist refreshes the cooldown of Shadow Step and supercharges a combo point. So getting Shadow Step back is kind of whatever. Like, you already have 2 charges of it. It's probably overkill on Shadow Step. But supercharging a combo point is interesting. You can keep dipping in and out of this, essentially. I think this only drops a mist, like, once. And as soon as you walk through the mist, you get Shadow Step back and you get a supercharged combo point and the mist disappears. But again, if you're combining this with something like Invigorating Shadowdust, then, like, you'll gain stealth in Mythic Plus. Follow me here, right? You're in Mythic Plus. You stealth before every pack. It drops a Shadow Mist in front of you. You walk through it. You get your Anima Charge combo point on every pull. So you have a 7-point finisher ready to go on every pull, which is very cool. Then you use Shadow Dance. It gives you a 7-point finisher. Then you Vanish to get all your cooldowns back. It gives you a 7-point combo finisher. Then you Shadow Dance again. You get a 7-point finisher. You Vanish again. It gives you a 7-point finisher. This is the kind of playstyle they're looking at there. There's a way to basically make this so that almost all the time you are gaining this supercharged combo point because you're just dropping mists all over the place. Because you keep getting stealth, you keep getting Vanish, you keep getting Shadow Dance. So very interesting. We'll have to see how this kind of works. I'm interested to see, like, if you expel 2 mists back to back without spending the supercharged combo point, does it supercharge a different combo point for you? If it does, then I think it will actually be quite strong. If, however, you like expel a mist and then you expel another mist because you press, you basically stealth twice for some reason, then it like one overrides the other. That's kind of bad. So, but this is an interesting idea for sure. That's the middle section of the tree. Let's go through the right-hand side of the tree. I want to say really quickly that the right-hand side of the tree feels kind of rough at the beginning here because you're forced to take Shuriken Storm, and you literally can't go down the right side of the tree without taking Shuriken Storm. You can't get any of these other buffs, which is annoying to me, and I think that needs to change. Number 1, Relentless Strikes needs to be up here. It needs to be the first thing that you take. Then you can do Shuriken Storm, then Black Powder, then buff to Shuriken Storm, then Secret Technique, then Shuriken Storm slows everybody. That's all fine. In this second row here, they really do need to make this connected to something else. Like, connect it to the first dance, or connect this node right here, connect it to Shadow Blades, please. Because being forced to take 1, 2, 3 AoE buttons just to get down to Replicating Shadows and Dark Brew, which I basically always want to take, and like Finality down here, and Deeper Stratagem and Flagellation, like I have to take 1, 2, 3 AoE buttons to get down there. That's just bad design. It's just bad design. You shouldn't be forced to take those buttons, I don't think. There should be a way to come down the middle of the tree here and then stem maybe from Shadow Blades over to improved Shuriken Storm. I don't even mind being forced to take 1 of these, but don't make me take 3. So I think it's kind of bad. But this is all your AoE stuff right here, all of it. And then obviously Veil Touched is there, doing 10% more magic damage. This is where it gets really interesting to me. I love this. This is really cool. Replicating Shadows. Rupture, which is your dot that you put on enemies, deals 30% damage as Shadow and applies to 1 additional enemy within 8 yards. Very cool. So this helps you to get your Rupture bleeds out really quickly because you can like Shuriken Storm, Rupture, Shuriken Storm, Rupture, and you'll have like 4 Ruptures out all of a sudden just from spending 2 Shuriken Storms versus like Shuriken Storm, Rupture, Shuriken Storm 4 times in a row, right? You don't want to have to do that. So that's really good on its own, but then it also does 30% additional damage as Shadow, which is super cool. So it just does a lot of extra damage. Then there's, of course, Dark Brew, which I talked about before. Increases the damage of your weapon poisons by 30%. You combine that over here with the Poisoner, and you have 50% increased weapon poisons. And guess what? They all do shadow damage now. So that just means that they all penetrate armor, like all armor. There's no armor on the enemy anymore, which is really, really insane. I think this is, like, absolutely nuts. Like, this is nutty. Very, very strong. Feels like a must-take, in my opinion, which is annoying because you have to go through kind of this AoE stuff here. Shadowed finishers, Eviscerate and Black Powder do a 40% damage to shadowed target. So this is nerfed from the live version, which is 50% extra damage as shadow. But again, as I've said with all the nerfs, you're getting a lot of extra damage elsewhere, so it's not a big deal. Eviscerate and Black Powder increase your shadow damage dealt by 15%. That is a Conduit, I think, right? Let me look really quick. I think it is, guys. Yeah, Deeper Daggers. There it is. Yep. So, Deeper Daggers, let me click on it here. It says 30% for 8 seconds. So, this is a nerfed version of Deeper Daggers. Obviously, I know the Conduit scales. So, I don't know what the actual sort of... I don't know what it would actually... I think it's probably closer to 30% on live. So, again, this is a little bit nerfed. But, again, as I've said with all the other things, you're getting more. So there's that, and then there's Deeper Stratagem here, which again I think Deeper Stratagem ought to be in the middle here. It's way too far down the tree. It's kind of strange that it's this far down. It should be at the top of this second layer. It should be up in this top row here somewhere. Maybe move Replicating Shadows over here. I don't know what it would be, but put Deeper Stratagem like right here and connect it to Shadow Blades or something so that you can run down the middle, go to Deeper Stratagem, and then get the rest of this stuff. That's what they need to do, honestly. But Deeper Stratagem is here. You could take it with this one over here and have 2 of them, have 7 combo points in total. Finality is here, of course. And then Flagellation. I'll get to Shuriken Tornado in a second. Flagellation feels a bit stranded at the bottom of the tree. It kind of feels, honestly, like they ran out of ideas and that they just kind of put it at the bottom as like a super talent. It feels like sure, it does shadow damage, and each combo point you spend within 12 seconds lashes for additional damage. This just isn't super crazy and doesn't fit really well with the shadow package. Like, it's not doing anything interesting. It's just doing shadow damage, and that's it. So I don't really know why Flagellation is here. It feels a bit strange. These other ones make sense. Like, this is the Rotten works with Symbols of Death, which works with Invigorating Shadowdust. There's like a whole build going here. This Shadow Mist thing seems interesting for Mythic Plus, in my opinion, and it's tied directly to a lot of the other stuff in the tree. Flagellation is just not tied to anything, right? It would be interesting. Sepsis is. Sepsis gives you a use of a stealth ability, so they need to change Flagellation to make it fit with Sub in a different way, in my opinion, if they want it to be here. Or else just give us something different, please. Let's talk about Shuriken Tornado. This is the last thing I want to talk about here. Shuriken Tornado actually seems insane to me. First and foremost, it's not competing anymore on the talents, right? So it's not competing for Master of Shadows or Secret Technique, which apparently you're not supposed to take according to Isoveins, but I like Secret Technique. It looks really cool. I understand why you don't necessarily want to take it because you have other finishers, but it's like very stylistic. It's a very rogue thing. But now you can take Master of Shadows and Shuriken Storm, and that seems pretty bonkers. Take Master of Shadows here, get Shuriken Storm over here if you want to do that. Shuriken Storm, I think, is really nuts because you basically are obviously going to press this button, and then what you can do is you can go double Deeper Stratagem for 7 combo points. Every time you Shuriken Storm, it hits all enemies within 10 yards. And obviously the damage will fall off. It does reduce damage beyond 8 targets, but it awards 1 combo point per target hit. That does not get diminished at all. So if you have 7 combo points because of double Deeper Stratagem, you can literally run into a pack with Shuriken Tornado, press Shuriken Tornado, you'll go Shuriken Storm, 7 points, finisher, 7 points, finisher, 7 points, finisher, 7 points, finisher. Now, with that finisher, you can obviously spend it on Black Powder if you want to, or you can funnel that 7-point finisher into a priority target. So this opens up the door in Mythic Plus for some really interesting combos with Shuriken Storm, and obviously improve Shuriken Storm, putting the Fine Weakness effect, hitting Symbols of Death. That doesn't work anymore. Hitting Cold Blood plus Shuriken Storm. Like, this is a really interesting combo. And I feel like it's a little bit more achievable now. It's a more enticing talent because you can get Master of Shadows if you want to as well. So I think there's something really cool there with Shuriken Tornado. I don't know how many outlaw or sub rogues actually took Shuriken Tornado in Mythic Plus anyway. I could probably look at that really quickly. Sub creation. Let me look at that really quickly. Mythic Plus. Let's go to sub rogue. Maybe it was taken all the time and I'm just an idiot. Yeah, lots of people did take it. So, but you can see there's a couple people here who didn't, but the overwhelming majority of people took it. But now you can get this plus, you know, Master of Shadows. So it's just good to see that kind of stuff. You can even see here, like, Weapon Master plus Shadow Focus plus Premeditation. You can get all 3 of these in Dragonflight. Deeper Stratagem, you can get 2 of those now for Sub-Rogue. So see the benefits of the Dragonflight talent tree? Like, you're limited so hard in Shadowlands, but you can take so many other things. So this, I think, is just going to get better, and it's going to be the way that you want to play it, of course, in Mythic Plus, with double Deeper Stratagem getting you to 7 combo points instead of 6, and making your Black Powder do way more damage, yada, yada, yada. So, or funneling all that damage into an Eviscerate and making it do tons of damage, whatever you want to do. So that's the tree, guys. That's Sub-Rogue. There's a lot to talk about there. I'll just summarize really quickly that I think there's a really cool build going on with Invigorating Shadowdust. I think that that's going to be a build for sure. Combining it with something like Sepsis, getting the second charge on Vanish, combining it with Symbols of Death and the Rotten and Cold Blood, getting the cooldown reduction on things like Cold Blood, Thistle Tea, Mark for Death, cooling all those things down is going to keep your uptime on Shadow Dance really high, and on top of that, your uptime on Symbols of Death even higher, which I think is going to just be a lot of damage, potentially in single target. Of course, really cool abilities here with the weapon poisons, 20% more damage to poisons, 30% more damage to poisons on Dark Brew. I think Dark Brew is cracked. I think it's crazy how good this is, and I think your instant poison will do a lot more damage because it's going to penetrate armor and do shadow damage, right? So I think you're going to see abilities that weren't really taken as much or couldn't be taken, quote unquote, will now be taken more. Like, you can get Alacrity now for Sub-Rogue and still manage to get the other talents that we're fighting in that row that I can't remember right now. Enveloping Shadows in the middle here, and Dark Shadow if you want it down below. So you can get more of those. But I think overall, Sub-Rogue's just looking solid. This right side of the tree is a little bit troubling. They need to maybe move Relentless Strikes up to here. And then please give us a connection between maybe Shadow Blades down to this second tier. It's annoying to have to take Shuriken Storm, Black Powder, improve Shuriken Storm just to get all the way down to Deeper Stratagem, Finality, and these really cool things here like Dark Brew and Replicating Shadows. So I think Sub's going to be good. I think they just need to fix this right side of the tree, and it's actually crisp. I think it's going to be really, really good. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below about Sub-Rogue. I think I keep saying Shadow. Sub-Rogue. And what do you think about the talent tree? What do you think about the different builds that might be developing? Do you think the Invigorating Shadowdust build will be anything at all? Do you think it'll be good? I think it will be. So let me know what you think about that in the comments down below. Of course, as always, drop a like if you like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. If you want to support the future of what I'm doing here, Patreon is the best way to do that. There's some bonuses you can get for being a monthly sponsor for my channel here. Thank you guys so much. I love you all. I'll see you in the next one.